Hi, welcome to the Go Higher Frequency Astrology channel. My name is Suzanne, and today I have invited back one of my favorite astrologers, Dabney Lawless, to talk about Uranus and Gemini through the 12 houses. She has recently launched a transit course with 2 live classes, which I have the pleasure to be taking part. Her first class will be February the 12th, which happens to be the day after my birthday. So come and celebrate with me while getting a chance to hear Dabney delineate your chart and how you might be personally impacted by the upcoming Saturn-Neptune conjunction. Dabney, anything you want to say about the class or any other offerings that you have upcoming?
Yeah, no, thank you so much, Suzanne. Just check my channel out, Lawless Astrology, and you can find information about the course. I'll give that to Suzanne. But my foundations course, if you just ever have wanted to learn how to read your own chart to begin with, that's half off at $34. And then this other course, it has hours and hours of material that is pre-recorded. And then, like Suzanne said, we'll have like 2 live sessions where I'm actually going to be looking at people's charts, as many people as I can. And that is still very affordable too, at $89. So thank you for giving me that little opportunity to plug myself.
Yeah, and it's really a great value, I would have to say. I always think that you price your offerings a little bit on the cheaper side, but a lot of people get to join. And I just really love to take part of your classes because I love to hear you delineate charts. You have such a skill at really delineating charts in a very simple way where people can understand, but also take some real deep learnings of their chart and their life. So I just really love to hear you do this live. So I think the 2 live classes are worth the price, even if, the pre-recorded sessions weren't even there. I think where you get the most is her live classes. So I'm really looking forward to it.
Thank you.
Okay, so before we talk about Uranus transiting Gemini through each of the houses, I wanted to talk about Uranus's final journey through the last degrees of Taurus, because we're not going to be entering Gemini until late April. So
Okay.
for me, I'm going to talk to you about what I see, and then I'm going to get Dabney's point of view. This is a time to revolutionize, upgrade, or zap out anything that has been stuck in our lives. Anything that has outstayed its welcome, anything that has started to calcify because of our comfort. We've had, especially in the United States, a lot of us, not all of us, but we've had a really comfortable life comparatively to other countries, especially third world countries. And so when you get comfortable, you kind of forget all of the things that you have abundantly that you start to have taken advantage of, really. And especially when compared to some other countries who have been clamoring to come and live the life that is offered by the United States, even just the promise of what we have here. And so it's a time for a revolutionary change based on our deep-seated values. We are getting a lesson in endurance these last couple of years. Dabney and I were just talking about this. Just like, come on, let's just get to it. Let's just
Rip the Band-Aid off, for God's sake.
Let's just have it out. Let's just get whatever we need to get over with. And I understand that desire as well, because this is really a test of our endurance, and especially about what we are willing to fight for in our lives right now. We have to be willing to, it's a marathon. It's not a sprint. We really have to be willing to put in the effort to sacrifice certain things so that we can keep what is most dear to us, what we hold most dear. And it's a chance to reinforce our most cherished values, to fight for what matters to us. And Uranus is forcing us out of our comfort zone. So I've talked a lot. What do you think, Dabney?
Yeah. So, if we think about Uranus as the force of upheaval and lightning strikes and change and progress, and, Uranus wants to, like we were just saying, like, just rip off the Band-Aid, like, let's go. Like, this is like, we've got to like break it down fast so then we can figure out what we're dealing with. Taurus likes to be secure and safe. And it's a fixed sign. It doesn't want to move. It wants to really just lock in and feel like everything is fine. And so, to your point, there's been kind of this battle going on where since 2018 is when it went into Taurus, where we have to really look at our values, our security, our food source, our finances, like, sexuality, like all of these things are coming into play right now. And there is momentum to change how we view these things. But it's like the Taurus energy is really uncomfortable with change. Like the Great Depression and the Dust Bowl, that was during a Taurus Uranus time frame. And so we have to realize there have been like these monumental huge shifts in our culture since 2018, but they've come in such a strange way. And it has been exhausting. It has not felt like progress. Often it has felt like, spits and spurts, and like, we had Me Too, and we had Black Lives Matter, and we had pronouns and all this stuff, which is, very kind of like Uranian, like progress, revolution. But then it was like, no, we're going back where we came from. Like, stop. Like, I don't want this change. This is uncomfortable. And so, so then you get kind of the backlash. So there's just been this really dramatic push and pull that once Uranus goes into Gemini, it's going to be very different energy. And it's going to be much more, people have chosen where they want to be. And it's not this like kind of tug of war battle between Uranus and Taurus energy. It's more just like, okay, we're going with this direction.
Yeah. It's like, the fixed signs are the last signs to change. They're pretty stubborn in that way, and they really do have to be yanked and zapped by Uranus to really get moving. I've been hearing a lot of talk about Uranus being conjunct Algol. I've been hearing about this conjunction in relationship to cutting off of heads, but I haven't really heard a lot of people lately talk about Algol being related to Medusa. What I heard you say about the Me Too movement reminded me of that. And it reminded me of something I just found out from the Epstein Files that have been released. Woo! And how there was a concerted effort by Epstein and whatever people that were working with Epstein to create Gamergate in response to the...
Oh my God, are you kidding me?
No, he had meetings with the leader of 4chan, and the 4chan Gamergate.
Oh my God, I had not seen this. And when that happened, I knew how important it was. In that moment, I knew that our leaders had to step up and do something, and they did nothing. And that was the beginning of the turning of the tide with all the negativity and harassment and abuse online. It was almost like a testing ground of hate that then accelerated and got us to where we are today. I find that to be one of the most important things that Obama and the Obama administration and the Obama DOJ and, Twitter and everybody got very wrong, because it was so messed up. And if you're not familiar with Gamergate, go look it up, because at the time I remember feeling like this is something big. Oh my gosh. Are you kidding me, Suzanne?
No. And which, as I've been reading more and more about what his strategy was in relationship to the Russian troll farms, it really jogged my memory a lot of what I had to deal with I'm from marketing too, like Dabney, but not from the PR side. I'm from the digital ad side. And I worked for an independent video place where I learned about ad-supported media and how much fraud there was in ad-supported media. And basically it was these Russian farms, basically penny traffic, they would call them. And they used this penny traffic in a lot of ways, and then it seeped into social media. And so there was a lot of,
or it was completely orchestrated into social media.
Yes. So, and then you found out later that these, because there was a lot of like DEI efforts, right? So we talk about DEI efforts as like, we need more women in tech. And so there were actually men posing as women online. Did you hear about this? Men posing as women to talk about women in tech and to seed all of these different storylines.
Well, I worked I did PR for a number of years for a company that worked to get women on board of directors. And so I was very much at the forefront of, what was happening with trying to, even the scales, because it was ridiculous. Like, it was such a concerted effort to keep women out of any kind of power positions. Like, the glass ceiling was absolutely real. It was amazing to watch how, in a matter of years, everyone went from trying to get people of color on board of directors, trying to get women on board of directors, to actually like just completely flipping the script to where we are today. No one cares, and the media will not touch it.
So you were talking about how quickly everything flipped, right? And you saw that across the board. There was mass firings there, especially with media companies, with technology companies. It was almost as if they all came together and made this decision together, the tech industry, and quite literally flipped the script. I think it started as the election started to pick up. The power structure shifted, or some people came into an agreement that this was not profiteering them and that they wanted to take a different tactic and to put in more money toward the Trump presidency, and everything sort of started galvanizing toward him. Do you think that that's a correct assessment? Or, I mean, that's just a theory.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think that, okay, this is what I think. I think the pandemic happened. And I think that after the pandemic, there was this tremendous backlash against the powers that be, like the gatekeepers, the people that held the power. And workers got a lot more power. In 2021, there was the whole quiet quitting. There was like this sense of like the workers, because post-pandemic, there was, just a shift in the power balance, which has happened throughout history every time there's been a pandemic. And it opens up doors for workers and women and people of color, or like anyone who is traditionally considered marginalized. The pandemic destabilizes, or a plague destabilizes society in such a way that the people who are on the front lines of making society work then have an outsized role and more power than they've had previously.
So we've had some technical difficulties because Uranus is stationing direct and will station direct tonight. So I'm going to try to get this video up by tonight, but we're having a little bit of technical difficulties. So I apologize. But you were talking about how the balance of power started to shift. And I felt that too, with the quiet quitting. And then people wanted everybody back in the office, and all of the workers refused. And I think it got to a point where they were like, we can't do this anymore. We've got to make some major changes.
Yeah. And I don't know if I cut out when I was saying like that's happened throughout all of history when there's plagues. And so what ends up happening too, and there's always throughout history been, then like the people get the people in power get their footing, and they're like, whoa, the marginalized people, the people that are serving me have gotten too much power. We need to take it back. And they often do it with kind of draconian tactics.
Yeah.
And so this is a very repeatable pattern that you see throughout history. And this also then coincided with AI making a splash. Yeah. So we really do have this this battle for security, this battle for the workers and what's best for the people versus what's good for the moneyed class. So that's very Uranus and Taurus as well. And so we're coming up on the end of that cycle where there's been this interesting, people have amassed tremendous amounts of wealth during this Uranus and Taurus cycle. And that is also very common too, that the rich get richer kind of thing. And we've seen this, but now that we're, tiptoeing over, we've had like a little dance into Gemini and it's going fully into Gemini, it is going to be such a different energy.
Yeah, it's so interesting. I wanted to read a quote about Medusa, because it's such a great quote and it informs some of the transits that are going to be happening before Uranus goes into Gemini. This quote I came across from Caitlin Kopic, Austin Kopic's wife, I believe. So she says, Caput Algol can serve as a potent protection talisman, one that turns violence furiously against the aggressor. Its rage is particularly feminine in character, for Medusa's monstrous origin was a punishment for the crime of having been raped. And I thought that was such an interesting quote because of this new dropping of the Epstein Files. And
can I also interject that I just had a headline in my inbox the other day: stripper beheads abusive boyfriend. She literally decapitated abusive boyfriend. I was like, well, there's some Algol and Uranus.
Yeah. And, they released some of his pictures about how it seems like he was strangled rather than hanged, and the injuries to his neck bone. So that's kind of like a decapitation too. And it's just like, it's this thing that won't go away. A lot of women have lost their lives. The most recent one was Virginia Giuffre, who supposedly committed suicide. And I'm not going to say that she didn't or whatever, but it's just so interesting because of this dynamic between the rich and powerful having the ability and the capability and the widespread acceptance of the crimes against children and women. And, if you want to broaden that out.
Very, very cavalier, very just like another day, like, hey, can I come to the island? Yeah. And all the while we don't think about the fact that, these young girls, their lives were being ruined, and pretty sick stuff.
And so when Uranus goes direct today, Venus will be at the 22 degrees of Aquarius. 22 degrees of Aquarius, I know very well because my son is at 22 degrees of Aquarius. But in human design, it's called the gate of revolution. If you wanted to look at the degree theory, people say it's about to kill or be killed. And what that really means is it's about the goddess Kali. And, that's very much kind of involved in this mythology. It's kind of this rage and this revolutionary rage. And I thought it was really interesting because of the approach that this administration is taking, which is put a lot of fear and uncertainty in the world, and it just becomes this spiraling cycle. So there's this simultaneous energy from the people, which is we need to create this revolution to save ourselves from this anarchy that's happening and all of this fraud and abuse of power, versus this energy from the administration that's also putting out all of this fear and saying we've got to go after and actually conquer these places, because if we don't, then somebody will, So there's this combination of revolutionary energy going on. You have any thoughts about that?
I mean, I do think that it's been a ripe time for fear, and not just with Uranus and Taurus, which absolutely can can be a threat to our security. But also with Neptune in Pisces and Pluto in Capricorn, there has been just the field has been ripe for people to feel like their safety, their security has been challenged, and the confusion has been at peak. And so we're just heading into such a different energy that is much more volatile in some ways, much faster, but less fearful. It'll be a much more courageous time where like we actually can see clearly, we know what we're doing, we understand the facts that are on the ground, and big changes can take place. Whereas like change doesn't take place in the way that it was kind of like that tug of war I was saying with Uranus and Taurus. It's like there's something constantly holding Uranus back.
Yeah.
And so Uranus will no longer be held back. Now, for people that their nervous systems get really, jacked by change and progress, and, it's going to be a jarring time. But it's going to be a much more empowered time. Yeah. And so I, for one, even though I have like a crazy, sensitive nervous system, I'm looking forward to it because I'm so tired of the lies and the delusion and the manipulation that really has been prevalent over the past few years, that it's just time for us to move forward, and we will.
Yeah. I mean, I've been feeling a little bit more assured that certain things have happened while Saturn and Neptune were still in Pisces. It's like, okay, this is still the cover up. This is still the delusion. And then, let's see what happens when they both move into Aries, because that's really going to show some new energy. We'll have a series of closing squares to Uranus. On February 6th, Mercury will have a closing square to Uranus. February 8th, Venus will have its closing square with Uranus. So we're going to have some upsets in a lot of different ways relating to, the women and Epstein Files and our values, some shocks and disruptions to Mercury matters, communication, drops of information, things that we didn't know. Something that just happened today, Paris invaded Musk's office over Grok. Did you hear that?
I did hear something about, the headquarters in Paris. So we'll see what that yields. But there was something about potentially, I don't want to mess with the algorithm by saying it, but definitely like unsavory things.
Yes. So that was, oh my God. So that's pretty much what a Mercury square Uranus would look like. And it's 3 days away. But like shocks and surprises to Venus themes. And then we'll have, of course, the solar eclipse, which is square Uranus as well, right before the Saturn-Neptune conjunction. The 28th degree of Aquarius is in conjunct to the last eclipse, and it's also on the US Sibley's moon. And it's very interesting because the 28th degree of Aquarius is the moon decan of Aquarius. So it's this interplay of Saturn and moon energy. There's a lot of oppression that's happened with the people, and the people are starting to fight back. And so we're going to be seeing quite a big shock during that eclipse time. Not exactly sure what to expect, but it is related to the people. There might be more protest or something happening as it relates to the people. Have you thought about this eclipse and what you see upcoming for it?
Yeah, I mean, I do believe that we are just going to be like every day in February, I feel like is going to be like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. Like, if you really like were paying attention, right? Like the things that would have just been like, 6-month news cycles are like, 30 minutes. Like there's too much to see. However, we're seeing it build up in Minneapolis where we definitely had during the Black Lives Matters protests in 2020, you had a lot of, you had a lot of white people coming out, but not in the same way you do in Minneapolis, which is interesting. It's kind of like, it was sort of like everybody, young people came out, of all races. But there was still kind of this energy of like outrage and frustration, but there was something kind of holding it back. Right. Yeah. And it was something somewhat performative for some people, especially the way the media took the information. And then you saw like Kylie Jenner in the Pepsi commercial, joining a protest and like sucking back a Pepsi. Right. Like there was kind of this like corporatization of it. Mm-hmm. Whereas what's happening in Minneapolis currently versus 2020 really is much more authentic, grassroots. There's nobody organizing it. It is just like people are fed up, they've had enough, and like something snapped. And I watched a video today about some people taking offense, like kind of going at core power yoga. They took down a sign that said in Minneapolis, it said no ice. The corporate people came and like they took the sign down, and one of the yoga instructors said like, what are you doing? Like, this is our community. We don't want ice here. And they said, well, we're taking it down. And so the yoga instructor quit. She said, well, then you're not aligned with my values. And then like the whole, everybody in the, like who takes classes there, like came out and like totally like berated the corporate people. And we're saying like, this is not representative. Like you don't represent us. This is our community. Like there was just something very like, and this is just like a bunch of white middle-class women at like core power yoga, right? Like saying like these are our neighbors, and what right do you have to take down this sign? And like, we don't want to lose this teacher. And so the corporate girls were like, okay, we hear you. Let's have a listening session. They're like, this is your listening session. You listen to us. Yeah. And like, that's the difference, I think, between 2020 and now is there is like an authenticity. There's a rawness that's like people are stepping up into their power.
Yeah, that's good. That's heartening to hear. We went on a bike protest for Alex Appretti, and we didn't get close to the ICE facilities, but we did hear from friends, direct friends, and from the bike community that they put out tear gas for no reason. The bikers were passing the facility and they just got a whiff of tear gas and pepper spray. And then in Portland, they put out pepper spray, and then my friend's 80-year-old parents got pepper sprayed. And it was for no reason. There was no attack or anything that they had done to incite the pepper spray. So it's happening everywhere. So there may definitely be something related to protests and what happens at protests.
Well, and also, this is like things that have to do with our financial system. It has to do with the Earth, the planet. Yeah. So, as Uranus is stationing to go direct, I live in the Bay Area, and we had like these massive earthquake clusters, like nothing like damaging, but I was up at I was a little jet lagged. I was up at like 5 a.m. and like the whole house started shaking, and it's like, and so then you really do feel that like Uranus is that like earth shaking. And so like in Taurus, because Taurus is the earth and Uranus is like rattling it because it's like something has to give, like it's time to change. And so I think around this eclipse, we're going to feel that energy of like the earth shaking metaphorically and potentially, real, like I'm not predicting a big earthquake, but that could happen, or it could be an earthquake in our financial system, which we're already seeing.
Crypto is way down. Yeah.
Yeah. What are those? It's like swarm, like tremor. That's the word. Yeah. Like we're getting the tremors of what's to come.
Yeah. The big thing that I noticed with this square is that the Saturn conjunction is happening like 3 days later. And Mars will be on the midheaven of Washington, D.C. at that 22 degrees of Aquarius. So very revolutionary energy, but coming from the powers that be in Washington, D.C., very aggressive tactics. And so that's what concerns me about, this attack on the people. So it seems like there might be something that happens that fuels the fire for a bigger crackdown from this administration. But that's just a theory of mine. It also might be coming from the Epstein Files. We have that Venus at 22 degrees. And there's been a lot of women out there. There's actually been a specific woman. She seems to be messaging that certain men have not been tried for their crimes. Ghislaine. She's been messaging. There's 26 men that haven't been tried for their crimes. And so I'm wondering if something that she does brings out some fall of somebody big or some kind of action from a male force to keep her from saying anything. It's just some thoughts.
Absolutely. And, we should probably talk about Uranus and Gemini, but I absolutely agree that we're in for a lot more surprising revelations about women, sexuality, finances, power, things that we are, I think, at the tip of the iceberg at this point, is what I think.
Yes. So I'm going to share my screen here. I'm going to put up some charts. Uranus does not enter Gemini until April the 25th. Seems like very far away. So it's basically...
It really does, even though it's not, but it does.
This is basically, after the eclipse, after Saturn-Neptune conjunction, after the Aries ingress, and after the conjunction of Uranus and Venus at 29 degrees of Taurus. So whatever is happening regarding Venus and Uranus is still finishing up in Taurus for a full year. And to me, that implies our financial system. One of the things, our financial system and the changes that we're going to be seeing. I think we're going to go through a revolutionary change in our financial system and how we look at money, how we're dealing with money, and how that functions in our society. So we have a full year that we have to figure that out. And this is located in Washington, D.C., this chart. But there's a lot of interesting squares in this chart. I noticed, the Venus is a conjunct Uranus as it has just passed over, and it's in square to the moon, which is very near the south node. But you see that moon is at 29 degrees of Leo. And we all know whose ascendant is at 29 degrees of Leo. And I thought that was a very interesting depiction of this new energy and what this might be about as far as our leader in the United States. And then when Uranus moves into Gemini, it will no longer be ruled by Venus, even though Venus is very close to it in this chart. It will be ruled by Mercury. And Mercury is down here, conjunct Mars, and it's square to Jupiter, which is interesting. And then Pluto is square to the sun. And so definite power dynamics in this chart, power and stress and aggressive tactics of communication. We've been really learning a lot about the Mars-Mercury archetype, how we communicate with each other, how we communicate to our enemies and friends, and the toxicity that's out there, the media, the social networks, free speech, and where are the limits, outside manipulation, voting, voting rights. There's so many places that you could say the Mars and Mercury archetype plays out. what are your thoughts on this chart?
Yeah, lots to look at. I guess the most recent, like the Mars Mercury, that's been a theme, I think, that we've seen brought to the forefront in some ways, because of the aggressive, the hateful, the bullying. What I see here is, with that square, is just an intense revealing. Like, sort of like you can't look away. Like, it's just right in your face finally. Like, it's like, for some people, the killing of Alex Preddy was like the turning point for them. Right. Like, that was the time where, like, I know there's this, like a, podcaster bro that was all in on Trump that, like, now just has come out and been like, I just see things so differently now.
Yeah.
And I think that's what this echoes with the Sun square Pluto. Like, that to me is very much like a reveal. It's an unearthing, but I'm not going to say this is gentle, right? Like, this is, I would characterize the time that we've been in a loss of innocence.
Yeah.
And so this is just sort of like, in some ways, a continuation of that, but new information comes forward.
Yeah.
We're constantly getting new information lately, and I just think that it's going to be more and more of that. I'm not seeing this as any kind of an accountability chart. This is a chart of, like, anger in a lot of ways with all that Aries. It's like fury. So fury from the people who have felt like they've been lied to, but then fury at the people who are losing power.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I see.
I take comfort in the fact that the moon is going down the drain into the south node, and the south node is the past. So every time I see something on the south node that resembles the present, I'm like, okay, is this it? Is it the past? Is he going?
But that's, like, to your point, that 29 Leo, it's just, maybe it is the past, but with the South Node in Virgo, it's like a control, like, it's like an assertion, it's like a dominance, right? And that is in the midheaven. So it's right at the top of the chart. It's like, I'm important. I'm the king. Nobody beats the whiz. Like, you're gonna listen to what I say at all costs. And if that means I'm gonna declare martial law, then that's what's gonna happen, because I'm gonna get this back under control. It's not gonna work, but that's kind of the energy. But that can be a tipping point too. That's like I said, the fury of the power of the people. And that's when, like, women often are the ones who initiate revolutions in ways that are not recorded in history. Yeah. Like, the Russian Revolution was really started by women going on strike. And so there's all sorts of stories that we don't hear about. And with this Uranus conjunct Venus, it probably will have already come to a head. And this is just like, we're seeing women at the core power yoga, right? Like,
yeah.
It's a little different than the, like, let's have a listening session and report back to our corporate higher ups. No, we don't care about your listening session. Like, that we did that. We tried that. And that didn't get us anywhere. That got us like a Kylie Jenner drinking a Pepsi. So no, thank you.
Yeah. So interesting. So, without further ado, let's talk about Uranus going through the houses. So what you see here is Aries at 0 degrees. So if you are an Aries rising, we're going to be talking about you, but just to remember that oftentimes you have your rising sign in certain degrees of Aries. So it's not going to be exactly this, but when you're reviewing monthly forecasts, you should always look for the rising sign when you're wanting to get a little bit more information about how it's going to impact you.
Or take one of my courses where I'm going to actually, where you understand exactly what house it's impacting for you, because it is really hard to know. Like I have a Sag rising, but I always have to listen for either Capricorn or Aquarius because I have an interception. So you never know. So definitely.
Same with me. I'm in late degrees of Libra. So sometimes I'll listen to both the Libra and the Scorpio. I mean, now that I'm an astrologer, I don't have to. But that's a big tip for anybody with later degrees rising signs. So let's start with the third house, Aries rising.
Yeah. So when you have a Uranus in the third house, what it is challenging you to do is to examine your relationships with your siblings. There may be a dramatic shift or change in your relationship with your siblings or your neighbors. There also may be a change in the way you communicate. This has to do with any kind of communication, whether it's written or vocal. A lot of times this can be, Uranus is an explosive energy. So there could be a break with, or an issue with a sibling or a neighbor. And this is going to, it's going to be in this house for you for a long time. So it doesn't mean the day that it goes in there. So this is like, what you're looking at is an evolution, a change in relationships for good or for bad, right? Like if you've been not speaking to your sibling or had a bad relationship with them for decades, you may, find common ground and come back together and reunite. So it doesn't always have to mean the opposite. But if you've been bullied by your sibling, or you feel like you don't really know them, or there's been, addiction issues or whatever, this may be a time where you just, suddenly say, I can't deal with this any longer. And you step away. It also can just be about finding your voice and communicating differently.
Let's talk about Uranus in the second house, a Taurus rising.
Okay. So when it's in the second house, this has to do with a shift in your values and your financial situation. So again, nothing good, nothing bad, just is. It's time to evolve. Uranus is always asking you to evolve. And so something that, you may, here, just an example, like a friend of mine had all his belongings, he was moving, and he had all his belongings in his like VW van, and the van caught on fire and he lost everything. And that's a very Uranus in the second house. Like you just lose everything. But then you come to like realize that you didn't need any of that stuff to begin with. And so he just always felt like it was such a blessing because he felt free from those things. So it's really just a shift, and it's like a release. It's a freedom from material items or a material like wealth that's been holding you back. If you've always struggled with money, you could come into some money. This could be a windfall. So it's just a change in some way when it comes to what you value. And a lot of times it directly relates to finances.
Okay, Uranus is entering the first house. This is for a Gemini rising.
Okay. So when you have Uranus in the first house, you're undergoing a deep change from within who you are as a person. So the first house, it's how you look. So it could undergo a change in your physical appearance, but it's also it's what the higher purpose of it is, a real change on a deep level that you are ready to go to the next version of yourself. While Uranus was in the 12th house, you were undergoing a very unconscious shift in who you were and what needed to be released because it was no longer working. And now when it comes into the first house, it's just a whole new you. And so that whole process of letting go, and then now what are you going to do with the letting go? So now it's like, okay, now I'm moving. I'm changing jobs. It's like you redefine yourself.
Okay, now we're a Cancer rising. So Uranus is in the 12th house.
Yeah. So when Uranus travels the 12th house, you can expect that a lot of things are going to fall away in your life because it is the unconscious, but it is the last house in the wheel. And so it's all the things that are hidden that we don't see. And the 12th house clears out the junk. It's where we kind of just release what no longer serves us, but it's not often a very conscious process. It just happens. And you see major life changes. You see people leaving your life. You see, it can be breakups. It can be death. It can be, potentially a medical crisis. There can definitely be things that shift in your life, but you have to hold on to the fact that it is because of something greater that you're being prepared for when Uranus goes into the first house.
Okay, so now we're at Leo rising and Uranus in the 11th house.
So the 11th house has to do with communities and organizations and your friendships, but it's not your like best friend. It's like people you spend time with. And so it even can be like online communities. It could be like a Reddit community. And so when Uranus goes into the 11th house, there is something about the fact that you have to really be surrounded by authenticity. Like it has to be like-minded people. So if you have been hanging out with all your sorority friends from high school or college, suddenly you realize this isn't who I am. And just one day it can be kind of abrupt where you're just like, this isn't really match who I've become, because the 11th house still has to do with maturity. So you step into your authenticity and you find like-minded people that will support you in that.
Great. And now we just did Leo. So now we're at Virgo rising, and Uranus is right at the top of the chart in the 10th house.
So Uranus crossing over to the 10th house usually indicates a change in career or social status. So something is very public that changes. And so, I often see this with people who are deciding to retire or people who are making a change in their career. Like they no longer want to be in IT. And so they are now a therapist, right? So it's like you just decide that we have this like, oh, what do you do for a living, right? Like that's a very common question when you meet someone because that's what defines you. It doesn't have to be your career. It's really just who you are to other people out in the world. There's just this shift in who you were. But again, anytime we're talking about Uranus, there is an authenticity that comes through. And so it's a realignment with what you're really supposed to be doing. It can coincide, Uranus going into any of these houses can coincide with a moment of crisis, but that crisis point then is a catalyst for change.
Okay, great. Now we're at my rising sign, Libra rising, and Uranus is in the 9th house.
Okay, Uranus in the 9th house and you've just come through the 8th house, which we'll talk about in a moment, but coming through the 8th house, you have a new perspective, and suddenly you're aligning your perspective with authentic views. So it's like something has shifted in you after it goes through the 8th house. And so when it's in the 9th house, you're just like, okay, I'm not the same person. I don't see things the same way. So this often coincides with people changing religions, going back to school, stepping away from a cult. I mean, there's a lot of different ways that this can play out. Deciding you want to travel the world, you're just like, life's too short. You overcome like a massive illness. And so you're just like, I've always wanted to go to Egypt and see the pyramids. And that's kind of what this is.
Cool. Scorpio rising and Uranus in the 8th.
Yeah. So that Uranus in the 8th that I was just mentioning, Uranus in the 8th, it throws you back on your heels. It's often a time when like the 12th house, there's something that needs to give. And so Uranus in the 8th house can be dramatic in the sense that and just everybody goes through these times, right? So this is like the roller coaster of life, but it's something that is really helping you pull up the unconscious material that you have not wanted to look at, that you are suddenly ready to look at. And you see yourself in a new way. And often it's an outside catalyst that will happen, like a financial, like you may inherit a bunch of money, or, you can, you could get a divorce, right? Like there's like all sorts of different things that can happen. So it's not good or bad. It just is. And what it is to help you finally see some unconscious material that you had not wanted to see previously. And then that's sort of that preparation for the 9th house for you then to realign your values.
That's cool. I like seeing the evolution, even though we're going backwards.
I know, right?
Okay, Sag rising, that's your rising, and Uranus in the 7th.
Yeah. So when Uranus comes into the 7th house, it often can be a shift or a change within your partnership or within your partner's life. This is something that I've noticed. There is the 7th house has to do with marriage, best friends, business partnerships. Like it's really the people that you're very close with. And when Uranus comes here, there's something that shifts and changes, and you just see them differently. So yes, this can coincide with, separations and breakups, but it can also coincide with meeting new people that are more aligned for you too. So again, it depends on your station in life. If you have been single for a long time, you may finally be meeting the person that is, kind of the one that you can have your independence with together in a partnership. And so it's also about finding new ways to relate. It can open up relationships in new ways. So there's just a shift in your partnership in some ways. And what I've noticed is my husband's been having this for a couple of years now. I, did the whole doom and gloom, like, oh my God, is he going to cheat on me? Right? Like, because that's happened to me in my past. And I said something to him about it, and he was like, not happy I said something. And, but now I've come to realize like it has more with me changing. Like, so he's having to kind of sit with the fact that there's changes going on in my life. Sometimes it's your partner that goes through the change.
Is he a Sag rising too?
And he's Scorpio rising. So that's why you have to kind of know which one to listen for.
Yeah, my husband is a Scorpio rising too. So yeah, I totally relate to this. Okay.
Yeah. No, and also me, and I did not accuse him. I just said, oh my God, Uranus going to your 7th house. I hope you don't cheat on me. He did not like that. But that was my insecurity. It wasn't
Scorpio rising. It's very hard for them to go. I mean, yeah. I don't know how many other, but anyway,
just sharing a little inside baseball with y'all about how astrologers, like, sometimes it's not a good thing to know everything.
I know, exactly. Okay. So now we come to Capricorn rising. So Uranus is in the 6th house.
Okay, so this, like I said, this is the one I would listen for, even though I'm technically a Sag rising. So Uranus is about to go into my 6th house. And when you have Uranus in the 6th house, it has to do with a change in work and daily habits. It's like how you spend your time, your service in the world. It also can relate to your health. So it is not necessarily a doom and gloom, like, oh my God, Uranus is in your 6th house. But it is a time where like you may have a change in the way you take care of your body. Like you may say like, oh God, I need to lose weight. Or like it may be like time for that exercise routine sort of things. There's just kind of how you spend your days. And you often can see this can coincide too with people retiring or changing jobs. So it's less about status. It's more about how you spend your days.
Yeah. Okay. Aquarius rising, Uranus in the 5th house.
So this one is, I've been experiencing this, and I can speak firsthand that if you have children, it has a lot to do with that. It can definitely shake up how your relationship with them, and changes in your relationship with them, and changes that they're going through. So the fifth house rules children. It also rules creative projects and your own kind of what makes you shine, what makes you special, what makes you light up. So there's a potentially discovering that. And there's potentially like just putting more energy and time and focus into something that you love and that is, a creative endeavor. And so, I can definitely tell you I have had all of that. This is Uranus went into my fifth house and I decided to start my YouTube channel and focus on astrology. And it's been a journey, but like Uranus never fails you. If you really kind of focus on where Uranus is and what Uranus is asking of you, I think Uranus, like, it can be such a good partner, is what I guess I would say. Like, if you really kind of are like, okay, this is time for me to focus on this. This is time for me to focus on creative endeavors, or this is time for me to recognize there's changes in my relationship with my child. Those are some of the themes that I've noticed with the fifth house.
Yeah, it's about liberation, right? It's about liberation from things that are stuck, and how can we evolve out of those stuck things so we can experience something new.
Right. And it's about not caring what other people think about you, which is always Uranus, but it's opposite the 11th house, which has more to do with, teamwork and, kind of working with other people, being a leader potentially. The fifth house is a little bit more that I'm gonna step into my own and not really worry about what other people care or think about.
Cool. Okay, finally, we are Pisces rising with Uranus in the fourth house.
The fourth house is home and family. And it's also your inner world. It's like who you are when no one is around. And so there is this kind of shift. You may move. Okay. So here's the literal things that people can say. There's like a change in residency because it is the home. There's a change, you may have a baby, or, like that also could be Uranus in the fifth house. But Uranus in the fourth house, like, could be conception. So there's something that is unseen by most people, that's shifting within you. And a lot of times it has to do with a letting go or a liberation from familial patterns.
Yeah. Yeah. Somebody was saying, another well-known astrologer was like, I didn't move. I've been here the longest, and Uranus went through my fourth house. And I was like, well, that's a shift. It doesn't need to be a shift. It's a shift from what we regularly do. So if we regularly move around, it might be a shift in staying put. You know what I mean?
Yeah, there's something internal that shifts in you, and it relates to your early childhood. It relates to your relationship with your parents. So it really is kind of this. Again, Uranus is liberating you. It is creating freedom from within in each of these houses, but the fourth house has to do with home and family.
Yeah, and I like what you described as that hidden areas that people don't necessarily see, and if you're not in touch with those hidden areas, it can create some chaos so that you can get in touch.
Right. Like the fourth, 12th, and 8th houses are the ones where we grow the most.
Yeah.
And it is not necessarily the ones where anyone can see what's happening.
Yeah.
So those are the tough ones because they're the water houses, but they're like they're shifts on an emotional level that then in the following houses pay off in dividends.
Yeah. Great. And I want to end this by thanking Dabney. I know we ran over time, and I'm so sorry about that. So I want to let you go. But thank you so much for coming on. doing this delineation. I always love to hear your delineations through the houses. So
I love hanging out with you, Suzanne. Thank you for having me on. Sorry about the technical troubles. But yeah, I think you're right. It's the Uranus station or all those solar flares or like whatever is happening because there's no real reason for it.
It's crazy. All right. I'll see you later.
Bye.